Good evening. I almost forgot it. We need to read Finnish. I've been sleepy my whole day. I did watch the late Danish evening news. Yes, let's open again. So almost finished, but I cannot remember because I'm very sleepy. Every day I'm very sleepy. Yes, got through here. So let's try Finnish.
The project in 1943, investigators vetted 400,000 potential employees and 600 companies for potential security risks. 247. Censorship. Security poster, warning office workers to close drawers and put documents in safes when not being used. Voluntary censorship of atomic information began before the Manhattan Project. After the start of the European War in 1939, American scientists began avoiding publishing military-related research, and in 1940 scientific journals began asking the National Academy of Sciences to clear articles. William L. Lawrence of the New York Times, who wrote an article on atomic fission in the Saturday Evening Post of the 7th of September, 1940, later learned that government officials asked librarians nationwide in 1943 to withdraw fish. 248. The Soviets noticed the silence, however. In April 1942, nuclear physicist Georgy Flyarov wrote to Joseph Stalin on the absence of articles on nuclear fission in American journals. This resulted in the Soviet Union establishing its own atomic bomb project. 249. The Manhattan Project operated under tight security lest its discovery induce Axis powers, especially Germany, to accelerate their own nuclear projects or undertake covert operations against the project. 250. The Office of Censorship relied on the press to comply with a voluntary code of conduct it published, and the project at first avoided notifying the office. By early 1943, newspapers began publishing reports of large construction in Tennessee and Washington, and the office began discussing with the project how to maintain secrecy. In June, it asked newspapers and broadcasters to avoid discussing atom smashing, atomic energy, atomic fission, atomic splitting, or any of their equivalents. The use for military purposes of radium or radioactive materials, heavy water, high-voltage discharge equipment, cyclotrons. 251. 243. Soviet spies. The prospect of sabotage was always present, and sometimes suspected when there were equipment failures. While there were some problems believed to be the result of careless or disgruntled employees, there were no confirmed instances of Axis-instigated sabotage. 252. However, on the 10th of March, 1945, a Japanese fire balloon struck a power line, and the resulting power surge caused the 3 reactors at Hanford to be temporarily shut down. 253. With so many people involved, security was difficult. A special counterintelligence corps detachment was formed to handle the project's security issues. 254. By 1943, it was clear that the Soviet Union was attempting to penetrate the project. Lieutenant Colonel Boris T. Push, the head of the counterintelligence branch of the Western Defense Command, investigated suspected Soviet espionage at the radiation laboratory in Berkeley. Oppenheimer informed Push that he had been approached by a fellow professor at Berkeley, Haakon Chevalier, about passing information to the Soviet Union. 255. The most successful Soviet spy was Klaus Fuchs, a member of the British mission who played an important part at Los Alamos. 256. The 1950 revelation of his espionage activities damaged the United States' nuclear cooperation with Britain and Canada. 257. Subsequently, other instances of espionage were uncovered, leading to the arrest of Harry Gold, David Greenblatt, and Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. 258. Other spies like George Koval and Theodore Hall remained unknown for decades. 259. The value of the espionage is difficult to quantify, as the principal constraint on the Soviet atomic bomb project was a shortage of uranium ore. Most scholars on the subject assert that the espionage saved the Soviets, at a minimum, 1 or 2 years in the development of their own atomic bomb. 260. Foreign intelligence. In addition to developing the atomic bomb, the Manhattan Project was charged with gathering intelligence on the German nuclear energy project. It was believed that the Japanese nuclear weapons program was not far advanced because Japan had little access to uranium ore, but it was initially feared that Germany was very close to developing its own weapons. At the instigation of the Manhattan Project, a bombing and sabotage campaign was carried out against heavy water plants in German-occupied Norway. 261. A small mission was created, jointly staffed by the Office of Naval Intelligence, OSRD, the Manhattan Project, and Army Intelligence, G2, to investigate enemy scientific developments. It was not restricted to those involving nuclear weapons. 262. The Chief of Army Intelligence, Major General George V. Strong, appointed Boris Push to command the unit. 263, which was codenamed Alsos, Greek for Grove. 264, soldiers and workmen, some wearing steel helmet, clamber over what looks like a giant manhole. Allied soldiers dismantled the German experimental nuclear reactor at Hagelop. The Alsos mission to Italy questioned physics laboratory staff at the University of Rome following the capture of the city in June 1944. 265. Meanwhile, Push formed a combined British and American Alsos mission in London under the command of Captain Horace K. Calvert to participate in Operation Overlord. 266. Groves considered the risk that the Germans might attempt to disrupt the Normandy landings with radioactive poisons was sufficient to warn General Dwight D. Eisenhower and send an officer to brief his Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Walter Bedell Smith. 267. Under the codename Operation Peppermint, special equipment was prepared and chemical warfare service teams were trained in its use. 268. Following in the wake of the advancing Allied armies, Push and Calvert interviewed Frederick Joliot-Curie about the activities of German scientists. They spoke to officials at Union Miniere du Haut-Katanga about uranium shipments to Germany. They tracked down 68 tons of ore in Belgium and 30 tons in France. The interrogation of German prisoners indicated that uranium and thorium were being processed in Oranienburg, so Groves arranged for it to be bombed on the 15th of March 1945. 269. An Alsos team went to Stassfurt in the Soviet occupation zone and retrieved 11 tons of ore from WIFO. 270 in April 1945. Push, in command of a composite force known as T-Force, conducted Operation Harborage, a sweep behind enemy lines of Hickingen, Beisingen, and Hagelock, the heart of the German nuclear effort. T-Force captured nuclear laboratories, documents, equipment and supplies, including heavy water and 1.5 tons of metallic uranium. 271, 272. Alsos teams rounded up German scientists including Kurt Diebner, Otto Hahn, Walther Gerlach, Werner Heisenberg, and Carl Friedrich von Weizsäcker. They were taken to England and interned at Farm Hall, a bugged house in Godmanchester. After the bombs were detonated in Japan, the Germans were forced to confront the fact that the Allies had done what they could not. 273 atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Preparations. The only Allied aircraft capable of carrying the 17-foot, 5.2 m long Thin Man or the 59-inch, 150 centimeters wide Fat Man was the British Avro Lancaster, but using a British aircraft would have caused difficulties with maintenance. Groves hoped that the American Boeing B-29 Super Fortress could be modified to carry a thin, a shiny metal four-engined aircraft stands on a runway. The crew pose in front of it. Silver plate B-29 straight flush. The tail code of the 444th Bombardment Group is painted on for security reasons. Man by joining its two bomb bays together. 274. This became necessary after Thin Man was abandoned, as a little boy was short enough to fit into a B-29 bomb bay. 218. But modifications were still required. The Army Air Forces Material Command at Wright Field, Ohio, began Silver Plate, the code name for the modification of the B-29, in November 1943. Test drops were carried out at Muroc Army Airfield and the Naval Ordnance Test Station in California with Thin Man and Fat Man pumpkin bombs to test their ballistic, fusing and stability characteristics. 275. The 509th Composite Group was activated on the 17th of December 1944 at Wendover Army Airfield, Utah, under the command of Colonel Paul W. Tibbets. Its 393rd Bombardment Squadron, equipped with Silver Plate B-29s, practiced long-distance flights over water and dropped pumpkin bombs. 276. A special unit known as Project Alberta was formed at Los Alamos under Parsons's command to assist in preparing and delivering the bombs. 276. The 509th Composite Group deployed to Northfield on Tinian in July 1945. 277. Most of the components for the Little Boy left San Francisco on the cruiser USS Indianapolis on the 16th of July and arrived on Tinian on the 26th of July. The remaining components, which included 6 highly enriched uranium rings, were delivered by 3 Douglas C-54 Skymasters of the 509th Group's 320th Troop Carrier Squadron. 278. 2 Fat Man assemblies traveled to Tinian in specially modified 509th Composite Group B-29s, and the first plutonium core went in a special C-54. 279. At the end of December 1944, worried by the heavy losses occurring in the Battle of the Bulge, Roosevelt instructed Groves and Stinson that if the atomic bombs were ready before the war with Germany ended, they should be ready to drop them on Germany, but Japan was regarded as more likely. 280. In late April 1945, a targeting committee was established to determine which cities should be targets, and it recommended Kokyura, Hiroshima, Niigata, and Kyoto. Stinson intervened, announcing that he would be making the targeting decision, and that he would not authorize the bombing of Kyoto on the grounds of its historical and religious significance. 281. Nagasaki was substituted. 282. In May 1945, the Interim Committee was created to advise on wartime and post-war use of nuclear energy. The Interim Committee in turn established a scientific panel consisting of Arthur Compton,